Welcome to the Project Fitness podcast for fitness professionals and fitness enthusiasts who want to be better at life. Fitness is the greatest investment of anyone's life. However, it's not easily obtained, and anyone who says different is just plain wrong. Join award-winning personal trainer and strength conditioning coach Chris Fudge every Monday as he explores all aspects of fitness that can lead you to your optimal health. If you want to learn useful, practical how-tos of weight loss, exercise science, nutrition, or just how to optimize your time in the gym and life, this show is for you. Welcome to another episode of the Project Fitness podcast. And today we're sitting down with someone very special. Today we're sitting down with someone who exercises quite good. And by quite good, I mean not just the strongest in the gym, usually not just the strongest in a competition, but I'm talking the strongest in the world. We are sitting down with 11-time world champion, IPF Hall of Famer, the real life Miss Frizzle, math teacher, bench press extraordinaire, powerlifter extraordinaire, Jen Thompson. Welcome, Jen.
That was such a nice intro. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's funny because when I go to interview someone, I want to make sure that I'm saying the right things and I'm hitting the right points. I don't want to say something wrong. You've won so much that it's hard to find the exact number of how many wins you have. So when I was looking online, it depends on what article comes up. 10-time world champion, 11-time world champion, 25-time national. There were so many different numbers come up. So I said the 11 seems to come up most frequently. Is that true?
Yeah.
You are 11-time world champion?
If you combine them all together, I think I have 4 in the quick bench press world championships. I have 3 in the raw world bench press championships, and I have 4 in the full powerlifting classic world bench press championship. So if you add them all up, it's 11.
Perfect. So I was good. I was right. 11. Okay, great. And anyone who is familiar with myself, Project Fitness, powerlifting, they know who you are. Everybody knows your tremendous accolades in the sport. And some people might say you're an absolute outlier. Some people might say, like the kids might say, she's a freak when it comes to bench press. I would always say that you are disciplined. And I think that goes to show because a lot of people aren't fully aware that you've been exercising in the strength game for 20 years, 27 years?
Well, I've been competitive powerlifting for 21 years now, but I've always exercised in some way through high school, through college, and then into powerlifting. I've always done some sort of exercise.
And you are the fountain of youth. You are almost, I'm going to have to say this, but you are almost 50, correct?
Well, I'm 47. I don't like to talk about the 50 quite yet. I keep telling my husband I'm still mid-40s, and he's like, I think you're late 40s. I'm like, no, I'm still calling it mid-40s.
But the fountain of youth, I mean, you are extremely healthy. You are the elite level as an athlete. You definitely take care of your body. But when some people will say things to me like, oh, that's the freak bench presser, I'm like, no, that's someone that's actually taking care of their body for 40 plus years. That's someone who's dedicated to barbell training, as you said, competitively 21 years, but you've been lifting since you were 20 years old. There's 27 years. And I think that if you just chip and you do a little bit here and there every year, well, after 27 years, you're bound to do something quite well.
Right. Yeah. And it was funny because like my husband has kept a spreadsheet of every meet, every lift that I have lifted. And so I was doing a speaker series with the Queen's Powerlifting Club last weekend. And so I was doing, just how to stay in this game. So we actually took that spreadsheet and we put it into like a line graph. And it was pretty interesting because it really is, it's not a huge steep line. It's just a steady line increasing over 21 years. It's just a slow ride the whole way. And so you just can keep doing it, keep putting on strength slowly, naturally. You're going to get to some big numbers by the time you're 20 years in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the commitment. You've committed to exercise for that duration. You should see something improve with that much duration, even if you're doing it wrong.
Right, for sure.
And you've been doing it right, and you've been doing it right for a long time. So a lot of people that know about you and me, they know you've been lifting for a while, but I don't think everybody knows about how exactly you kind of got into the world of strength training, because it's a bit different coming from a female perspective. And I do want to spend a lot of time today talking about the female perspective and your role as a role model in the sport. Would you mind just telling some of the listeners how you got into strength training and where it started?
Well, I always, like, in retrospect and reflection, it really actually started in high school. I was actually a long distance cross country runner, and I ran track and I high jumped. But one year we had to take gym our 9th grade year, and then you didn't have to take it again. And we also had to take swimming. And then there was this class called marine fitness, and it was all like the bros in this class, like it was all the dudes, and it was all worked around doing the marine fitness program, which was like a series of push-ups and sit-ups and so on, for a time period. And the coach of that program came into me during PE and he said, "I want you in my class. I think you'd be really good." And I was pretty shy and intimidated as a 9th grader going into 10th grade. And I didn't want to do it because it was all boys, and I just felt intimidated and overwhelmed by it. But the idea of it appealed to me. So my best friend in high school said, I'll sign up with you. I'll do it with you. Let's do it together. So I said, okay. So we signed up, and I took it every semester, my entire high school after that. And I think that's where I got a lot of my upper body strength, because as females, we aren't born with it for sure. And it's something you have to work at. And so like, by the time, and we actually competed in it. We went to other states and competed in this fitness type of program. And I could do 30 pull-ups. I could do 60 push-ups. I could do 100 sit-ups in 2 minutes. I could do the rope climb with no legs up and down. Like, I just got super strong. And because it was mostly boys, those were who I was aiming for. And I could beat a lot of them by the time I got midway through this. And we did a small amount of weight training, but back then gyms weren't big. We had like a small universal machine, and that was it, which is the pins and the weights. And I remember, like, it was a machine press, but I think I was able to do like my body weight, and that was like huge. It was like 110 pounds, and that was like a big deal that I could do that. And our coach, who actually I still follow on Instagram, Hal Kemerson, he was our cross country coach, and he was a big supporter of mine. And we were doing things, and he'd be going, "Go after that guy, Jen. You can beat that boy. Go get that boy. Come on, get the next one. Now get the next one. Now get the next one." And I just got better and better and better. So I think that's kind of where a lot of what I call like my base strength came from. Is like I had some upper body muscle, where most of the girl sports, you talk about soccer and things like that, it's all leg driven. It's not a lot of upper body strength. So I believe it all started from then and upon reflection.
I think that's so important for people to hear, because your environment was different. You were chasing the male counterparts as your competition.
I would have never thought to do that if he hadn't been pushing me to do that. He was quite an amazing teacher and man and supporter of women's sports. Even though he had boys, and he had a lot of boys in his class, he made it his mission to kind of pick out these girls and push them to do more than they thought they could.
With knowing that, did that lead you into your decision to become a teacher?
That and a couple other ones. I was not a good student in school, and I hated high school.
Were you skipping school and just doing pull-ups? Is that why?
Yeah, right. No, I was a good girl. I would go, but I didn't have a ton of friends. We moved around a lot, and I didn't fit into any of the little cliques that they had. And it wasn't a good experience. I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere but sports. So it was sort of my saving grace, and I met some good teachers along the way. Although if you ask me, I hated high school. So I find it ironic that I teach high school, but I say it's my mission to make sure no kids hate high school.
Oh, I love that so much.
It's my mission to make sure no one was like me. So I go out of my way, to really talk with some of the kids that don't fit in. I started a powerlifting club there, and it is funny what kind of people powerlifting draws in. It usually draws in the kids that don't fit into a sport. They want to be athletic, but they don't know where they fit in. They don't particularly have a skill for football or basketball or baseball, but they want to do something. And so you get this really unique group of kids that bond together, and they form this amazing community that's a support group, almost like through powerlifting. And some of them are athletic, and some of them just really want to be there. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I find powerlifting is unique in that sense, from a sport perspective. And I have a good friend of mine, we were chatting last week, and he said the best power lifters are always the best athletes. And I'm like, I don't think so.
No.
When you look at this person, they're not always the best athletic people. You have to lie on your back and push. You got to squat and stand. Yeah. Like there might be a lot of characteristics, or there might be some high level athletes who then do very well in powerlifting. But when you sit down after a competition, you're at the banquet and you're at that table and there's 15 of you, and you go around and you ask everyone, what do you do? What's your background? Everyone is so unique. Everyone is different. A lot of times people kind of are loners, right?
Yes.
But what's the one thing everyone has in common? It's an inviting sport that allows anyone to do it. And I've always admired the best, but I always love the relationships that you make when you meet people.
100%. And that's definitely what's kept me in the sport for so long, is the people that I've met and the lifelong friends that I've made along the way has been amazing. It's really, I think it's just wonderful we have something like this.
Agreed. And it's kind of silly. You push a bar, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of complexity to it, but I personally believe, and tell me if you feel the same around this, when it comes to barbell training or training in general, it's very individual. You work with a team and stuff, but at the end of the day, you lift it or you don't lift it.
Right.
But I think everybody respects each other's effort and work ethic. I always get excited when I see someone hit a PR, whether it's a world record or their own PR, 2.5 kilos. They could be the last or the weakest person in that competition, but they hit a PR, they did their training, they tested it and they got it. And you can just see that level of excitement.
Oh, for sure. And it's even like that back at Worlds, even back in nationals, it's pretty cutthroat. You're all out there trying to win, but at the same time, you're high-fiving and cheering each other. And may the best woman or man win, So, and I remember like in Finland and specifically, I hit a world record in the bench press, probably, I think, or it might have even been the total. No, I think it was that. And I remember walking to the back because Finland, it was just an amazing setup they had. And every lifter and coach was lined up to high five me before they went and warmed up for deadlifts. They could have just left and went to go warm up, but they all stayed and watched and high five me as I walked through. It still gives me chills and goosebumps as I think about it. I think what an amazing sport where that happens.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest sports that generate income, like the NFL, if a team beats the other team, they don't even shake hands.
Yeah.
Right. You don't see them in the locker room high-fiving when the guy walks to the girl, when people walk down the hallway. That's not happening. And that is, financially probably the biggest sport in the world.
Sure.
They don't even do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's, I think it's pretty special. Even like at my last nationals, Sam Calhoun was pulling to beat me, but she was pulling for an amazing record. So we're out there cheering her on, because in the end, I feel like any big milestones that women in particular make, but men too, it's all good for our sport. It's all excelling our sport, because I'd love to see it go bigger and higher places.
Agreed. I'd like to just pivot a little bit on that note specifically, where you talk about the sport going to bigger and better places and stuff. I mean, you've been World Games Athlete of the Month. You've been at the top of the top, Hall of Famer, all that jazz there. You've got a different role now. I don't know if you want it or not, but you are seen as a role model in the sport for a lot of females, a lot of young women, and they look up to you. Knowing that they do that, have you changed the way you interact and stuff? Because since I've met you, since I've seen you in competition, and we were at the Iron Sisters and stuff, you've just been like a ball of positivity. I love watching you lift. I want to spot and load sometime when you're competing, because you come out and you high five the spotters and you get everyone fired up like that. I feel good watching other people feel good, but yet you're the one doing the lifting. Have you changed the way that you've interacted with people over the years because of your involvement and your position in the sport?
I don't know if I've changed the way I've interacted. I think probably maybe more aware would probably be a better way of saying. I do think probably pause a second before I post things or say things sometimes. Trying to remind myself that there's people of all ages watching and listening. I'm hyper aware sometimes because of my teenage boys. I don't ever want to do or say anything to embarrass them because they're at a funky time in their life, So I would just say that I try to be where sometimes I might think something's off the cuff and funny and maybe a little bit rude. I probably wouldn't say it now. just being more aware of my audience, and who's watching, and being a teacher and somebody in the school too. It's important that you represent all aspects of your life, I think, in a positive way. So I try to still be accessible. I try to still be helpful. I try to be positive, especially nowadays. It's kind of hard sometimes. But the only thing I think it changes, I definitely pause a little bit more and think before I say or do, knowing that I have this role model position now.
Yeah, I'll have clients sometimes, and I deal probably 60-70% of my the athletes that I coach are female, and they'll message me, Jen Thompson liked my lift. She liked it on my Instagram post, or I sent her a message, she messaged me back, and I'm like, yeah, like she puts pants on like everyone else. And they're like, yeah, but then she benches like 3 wheels. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
I do try to get to every message and everything. Anyone that tags me, you don't get to them all, but I do try to make an effort because of things like that. If that made somebody pretty happy that I did that, that was easy for me.
I can speak on their behalf. You don't make, a lot of women, you don't make their day, you make their month. You might make their month just by sending a message back.
That's pretty wild.
This is all the beauty. This is all the fun stuff. I mean, it's nice to be the role model. I don't think it was always like that. When you started out in the sport, especially because the sport did not have a lot of females in the early days when you were competing and stuff, was there any roadblocks? Was there anything kind of slowing you down or stopping you? Was there any issues in the beginning that was different than today?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot more challenges, I think. We definitely didn't have the internet as it is today. Back in the late 90s, it was just kind of getting going. A lot of people didn't use it because it was so slow. Like, you had to wait so long, for things to dial up. And so you definitely didn't have the wealth of information. I mean, there's still definitely more of a negative connotation for women with muscles. And it wasn't, if you were to, luckily we trained most of the time in our home, but sometimes we would go on vacation or whatever and work out in a public gym. And it was a little intimidating sometimes because people would be like, well, what are you doing in this section of the gym? The treadmills are that way, So, yeah. And then, I did get some not so nice comments about my physique as I was getting stronger. But now that's definitely changed. It's more celebrated than negative for sure. And you can definitely walk in gyms nowadays and see quite a few women in those free weight spots, and you see a lot more men and women working together. But even in the competitions, like, there just wasn't the numbers, and we were separated. We would be the very beginning of the competition in the morning when no one would watch, and they'd just get us all out of the way before the real competition started. Things like that. And that has definitely changed. We've gotten more of the spotlight roles, and they've spread us out, and our numbers, are way better now. So, and social media has helped out a lot, I think.
Did you ever push for that? Did you ever say like, hey, I'm doing a pretty big thing here. Why don't you have me midday? Or why don't you spotlight what's going on, for the female side? Were you ever like an advocate for that?
Yeah, we would definitely speak to meet directors, talk to organization, really throw out sort of just some ideas. I mean, we really didn't have any power to do anything, but we did. And I always feel like, Larry Maley's been our president of USA Powerlifting for a long time. He's been a big supporter of the women's side of things. So I can remember one year we were doing bench press worlds in Hungary, and the IPF administration thought that the women would love to have a bikini contest in between our lifting. And so they were going to have us walk down stage in our bikinis and let the men rate us.
The lifters?
Yes. And I quickly fired off an email to Larry Mail. I'm like, dude, this cannot be serious. He's like, I got this. Don't worry. And he's like, and they were like, what? We thought the women would love to be showcased like this. And I'm like, serious. I mean, like, we are here as athletes, not as your skin entertainment. But ironically, although, that got kiboshed pretty fast after they put it out, at the banquet that night, like, the entertainment was half-dressed women naked dancing for us. Like, I think that was probably back in, it might have been 2004, somewhere like that. So I guess it wasn't that long ago.
I would just like to see the opposite that's flipped one time. Just imagine it was like a men's only world, and then you get men dressed up in like Speedos coming out at the banquet or something.
We're going to showcase you.
Yeah, that's so bizarre.
Yeah.
That's wild. So for females in general, I'm sure you get this question all the time and stuff. You know, people, they want to emulate you. They want to be like you. They want to lift. They want to get stronger, but they might say things like, my husband doesn't want me to have too many muscles. Or they're like, I just don't want to get big and bulky. When someone says that to you, how do you normally respond to them?
I usually just say that's sort of like a myth, and that usually comes from, men and women seeing bodybuilders, female bodybuilders that are taking a little extra stuff to achieve their physiques, Mm-hmm. So I usually just tell people, your body's always going to let you get as big and as muscular as your body wants it to be. Like, there's a regulation. You only have female hormones. You're not taking testosterone. So like the idea that you can even achieve that is false. And your body's only going to go as strong as you allow it to be. So you will always maintain your femininity as long as you stay a natural athlete. So, and then a lot of times with the husbands, as soon as they sort of recognize that, and it's a slow process. I mean, you can't just pick up a weight and bam, you got, traps and delts and quads and, the booty.
But if anyone out there knows how to do that, tell me. I want to be able to do that.
It's a long process. It takes quite a while to do, So I usually just kind of, try to bring a little bit of dose of reality, because that's just, it's fictional if you think that can just happen.
Yeah, 100%. I always feel sometimes that they're getting misinformation, or the magazine they picked up was from 1985.
Right. Yeah.
Like that.
I do feel like a lot of that's changed. I feel like the variety of women's physiques is more celebrated now. And I think that's a good positive change. Like when I first started, it was very much like everyone wanted to look like a model, barely any weight, just super skinny. And now you see more people celebrating, having the squat butt and being thick with 2 C's, and feeling comfortable posting, their body type. And so I love that we're heading in that direction.
Yeah, we had Girls Who Powerlift. Ivy Knight was on the podcast the other week there, and we're talking about similar things, like celebrating what you can do, not what you look like, but what can you do with the body you have. And fun fact is, like, more muscle mass on a natural state leads to longevity. Mm-hmm. People with more muscle mass, they maintain their mobility and their independence a lot longer than people without it.
Yeah, and bone density too, yeah. Yeah,
and you're a phenomenal example, like Fountain of Youth over here, and you've been lifting weights for 27 years.
That's right. So it's done me well.
Mm-hmm. You do a bunch of other things within the sport as well, outside of just, world records and all that jazz. I know you are a state chair, right? So you're involved with organizing and running meets, yes? Yeah,
I've been the state chair, I think, since 2004, and I just took on a co-chair because we've been building up so well. We need more than one person running this stuff, but it's been a big goal of mine to get North Carolina powerlifting up and going, and we've done a really good job. We have a good reputation for running good professional meets and really putting the athlete as the focus of the meet. So I'm very proud of that. And if you've ever run a meet, it's no easy task.
Yeah, we're my wife and I in our powerlifting club down here, we've been running meets for about 5 to probably 8 years. And I think the biggest meet we ran was just over 400 athletes.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so we've been in it. We know. My wife always says, if I'm making 5 cents an hour for the work I'm doing, like, I'm going to choose how it's done.
That's about right.
Yeah. So you run meets obviously just to increase the exposure of the sport, or just as a way to give back?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we grew up in Detroit, Michigan. We moved down here and outside of Charlotte, and I think in 97. And so when I got in powerlifting, I needed a few years, I feel like, to understand and learn the sport. But we never really had a lot of leadership in North Carolina. So I just decided I was going to step up and do that. I think at the time I took it, we had like 11 members in our state. We didn't have any referees. I had just become a state referee myself. It was a little bit of a big task, but a lot of it is just, build it and they will come sort of attitude, So once you kind of start things, other people start jumping in and helping. And before you know it, you have a community working together to build and grow the sport that everybody loves. And, I do love the meets, just as we've said. You see a lot of returning athletes. You see them hitting PRs. You see that community aspect, that giving back part of the sport. And I think it all starts at what we call the grassroots level, which is your local powerlifting events. And if you can make sure that someone's first event is an amazing experience, odds are they're going to stay in. And then maybe volunteer one day.
Yes, got to get those volunteers.
Yeah.
It's kind of addictive, eh? Once you've established it or you felt it yourself, well, this makes me feel really good. You want to share with other people. Mm-hmm. And I think the sport attracts two types of people. One on that level. The other is, sometimes people are in it more for themselves. What can I get out of this? Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lot more people who want to, share those experiences with other people. Because let's be honest, like sitting in a chair, like if you're reffing, like I'm a national ref over here in Canada. Like yeah. I ref because I became a ref to be better at the sport, yes. To learn the rules of the sport. So when I coach people, I'll be good at it. Yeah. I don't like sitting in a chair for 4 hours. It's not fun.
And you always end up doing, because they're always short referees, it seems like. So you always get stuck doing that.
Yeah. And my knees hurt from sitting, and I feel like, you got to do the funny stretches. And then running a meet as well. There's always this small duration. I find that there's about 1 hour. We run a 2-day event when everything is flowing. Right, everything is going well. You got the volunteers in the right position. Everything's on time. For a split second there, you can stop and just look around and admire how great everything's going. It's phenomenal. But it's usually only about 1 hour per day.
All the stress and chaos before, and then once you get through like the first round of squats, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're okay.
Besides being part of running meets and being the chair in the sport of powerlifting and stuff, you're involved with a lot of different charities I see online.
Yeah, I try to give back in as many ways as I can. My mom was a good influence on that. I just feel it feels good to give back and help people, and to see the things that you do affect others in a positive way. So I do a lot with No Kid Hungry. Being tied in with the schools and seeing the impact some kids have on a day-to-day basis. This is the one charity. There's a lot of charities out there, but I feel like this is the one that's making a huge impact. So I partnered on with them, especially during the quarantine, and while schools are out, they've been working very hard to help kids get meals, and not just meals, but healthy meals, not crappy meals, which is big. So I like doing that. And then I, just deliver meals to elderly people in our neighborhood and stuff like that. And we have I love my school. It's all about learn, serve, and engage. And it's all about working in the community. So we have lots of community projects that we do at school with our kids. So it just makes you feel good.
There's a lot of talk these days with social media, and people talk about you need to have a self-help, self-love day. And sometimes people, they're in the bathtub with a glass of wine and stuff. And it sounds like you get a lot of positivity from helping others.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times when you're helping others, it makes your own struggles and things that you're working on seem a little silly. When you look at this, the perspective, when you look at what other people are suffering and dealing with. And I always, whenever I'm feeling down or my kids are complaining about something, I always remind them and myself of that. There's someone else that's got it much harder than we do today. Let's just be thankful for what we have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just one sec. Someone's trying to call me right now. I don't want to talk. Okay, back on now. I agree a lot when it comes to that. When you can, you should help other people. And with the charity work that you've done, if someone's thinking about doing some charity work and stuff, do you have any words of advice for them, how to get into it?
Really, it's just starting. It is amazing too. We did the Stronger Together, where I did it with Meg Squats and Ed Cohn and Bart Kwan and Risa Inda and Ray Williams. I just reached out to them and said, hey, do you want to do this with me? These kids need these meals. And they were all like, yeah, let's go. So a lot of times you don't even realize the people that are willing to help. They just need someone to ask them. Most people want to do things, but they just don't know where to start. So honestly, it's just coming up with an idea a lot of times the charities have a lot of support of how you can help them raise money and guidelines and suggestions. A lot of times it's just opening yourself up to being available. And then you'll be surprised, what the ideas you end up coming up with. I mean, it can be easy as just like, at our school, some of the kids are making masks for people to wear. It can be it doesn't have to be some gigantic, broad spectrum kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It could be just the fact that you're selling lemonade and giving that money to somebody that needs it. I mean, it doesn't have to be. It can be small. Small things are big too.
Yeah, and I know where I am specifically in Ottawa, Ontario. A lot of times things look really good. It looks like we've got a strong community. It looks like there's a lot of money in this area. It looks like everyone's fine. But I actually coached at my wife's high school. And when I started coaching, I remember one time in the morning, one of the kids, he didn't feel good. I said, why don't you feel good? Do you need breakfast? He's like, no. And I was kind of on him. I was like, you need to eat breakfast before we practice. Like, you need to eat. And he said, well, coach, they don't serve breakfast at school until this time. And I said, well, just eat at home before practice. He said, well, we don't have any food.
Yeah.
And I'm not from here. I'm from a different area. And then I said, what do you mean there's no food? Mm-hmm. Live in this area. And he's like, our family doesn't have any money for food, so I get food through the school. And that really made me take a step back. And I didn't complain for a long time. Perspective. And we use powerlifting here for the food bank in our area. We've been doing that for years. And it was that one interaction I had with that one person who I didn't know. And I think a lot of times people don't know what is going on in their communities. And sometimes just if you want to help and volunteer in any aspect, there's always people who need the help.
Sometimes it's like just a matter of looking like one street back. The streets you drive down look so nice, but if you just go one street back, you really see the things that most people are ignoring.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Mm-hmm. I had one person I had a handful of people ask questions, and they say, can you ask Jen these questions when you get there? I said, yeah, no problem. And I think we need to clarify some things, because some people were like, so how much does she get paid? What do you mean? Like, I messed her back. What do you mean? Well, she's like a professional power lifter. And I said, no, she's a high school teacher. Said, yeah, but I said, we don't get paid. People don't get paid. Yeah. A sponsor or something for a belt. But so someone literally thought that your job was just train in the basement, go win world championships, and collect your checks. You want to clarify that for them?
Well, if we lived in another country, that might be true. Because sometimes that happens over in Europe and Russia and places like that. But I know Canada and America, no. It's, we actually have to pay our own money to go to world events for our own drug testing. We have to pay, we have to buy our own tracksuits, any money you get is really usually, I get some support from sponsors, of course. Mm-hmm. And I do a little coaching and seminars that brings in some money, but that's actually work. That's just not a given. So I don't know really too many people that make a living. I don't think there's anyone that makes a living off this sport, like where they just train and that's their living. I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of like programming, coaching, selling of something going on. So although you would like to think that was it, that's not the case. No, it's just all for the love of the sport.
And your gym, have you named your gym? Like, I've got the Fudge Factory in my basement. Do you
that is awesome. Yeah. We just call it Thompson's Gym.
Thompson. Yeah. Not Jen Thompson's gym, because there's Jen Thompson's husband.
I know. We've always just called it Thompson's Gym, even way back before we even did any of this stuff, because we've always had a basement gym and we've always had friends come work out with us. So it's just, it's not really creative. But we have t-shirts and stuff.
That's a start. I'm going on a podcast as a guest next week. So there's this guy, and he's got a company where he customizes basement gyms, home gyms.
Yeah. What is it? Which one is that one?
Custom home gyms.
That's what's called. Okay.
Custom home gyms. Yeah. So I'll be on his, and I'll share. You'll see here in the next few weeks and stuff.
Yeah. That's cool. Like, it really is. I have been following some like garage gym type of social media things. Man, some people come up with some great stuff. in just a small amount of space.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, just from what I can see here, you look like you've got everything you need, right? Like you've got
Oh
some
yeah.
funky
Well, a lot of this
equipment,
stuff is like original from the 80s, where my husband and his friends built it, in Detroit tool and die on their off times. They built a lot of the racks and a lot of the equipment. We have I have a whole gym tour on my YouTube stations, 132 pounds of power. And Donovan talks about how like some of these pieces, like you couldn't go in and buy it in the store. You would go in, you look at the model, and you say, okay, I want this, but can you do this and this for it? And then they would build it for you. Mm-hmm. There was no like mass amount of weight equipment that you could buy. Mm-hmm. So, but the good thing is it lasts forever. So, so we still have stuff from the 80s in here that's still doing just fine.
Yeah. And sometimes I always say, like weight is weight.
Yeah.
Right? Like to get stronger, you need weight to stimulate and stress your body. And sometimes it doesn't have to be pretty. Weight is just weight.
Yeah. Hardcore stuff's the best stuff.
What's your favorite piece of equipment you got in the Thompson's gym?
Well, outside of the bench.
I guess you'd say bench, yeah.
We just got a belt squat machine. And I love that because as I got older, my spine doesn't take all the crushing weight so well anymore. So it gives me a great alternative to keep building up my squat without squishing my spine all the time. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's my longevity saver is the squat machine.
Yeah, the belt squats had a lot of positive reviews, just for lifters of multiple ages to still train the lower body without compressing the spine. And I think it's going to be one of the standards for the M1s and up.
I think so too. And you can even just do it in your own gym by standing on some blocks and just hanging a belt with some weight. You don't have to go with the fancy belt squat machine. So it's something you can easily incorporate into just stuff you have laying around the gym.
Mm-hmm. Are there other things that you do to maintain kind of your health as you're getting a little bit? That was one of the questions. Someone said, well, she's a master age lifter. How is she so dominant? So have you modified or changed things over the years to accommodate for your body?
I haven't done a ton. Like when I hit 30s, I added some more rest in. I've really just kind of kept it. We do a 2-day on, 2-day off training system. So we get 2 days of rest back to back every week, every 8 days. So that has helped. I've sort of had to modify some things. Like I do less under the bar work, more machine work. I still do it, but just not to the extent that I did. I try to supplement in some less body stress type of exercises. And then supplement wise, take the calcium and the vitamin D. But I started taking some, I'm not even sure if I'm saying this right, hydrochloric acid? Hydrololic? I can never say it right.
Yeah.
And then Biflex, which is, it's like just glucosamine and chondroitin. And although my joints feel great, like nothing feels bad on me. Like our older guy was like, you should just take this, it just will help. I take it, you should take it. I'm like, well, okay, if you take it, I'll take it. So just some things like that. But overall, like it really isn't all that much different. We've always put a big priority on rest, sleep, nutrition. I sit in the hot tub probably a lot more now, but other than that, that's it.
Okay, so some of the standard stuff, nothing out of the norm.
No,
that's good to know. It gives hope for other people. They think they think you're crawling into these like cryo chambers at night and
no way.
And coffins and stuff.
Well, I just think it's all about doing everything correctly with good form. I think as long as you stick with the basics and you do everything right and you stop when you should stop, I think that's the longevity key right there. When something doesn't feel right, you don't do it. And we have a saying in our gym: it's better to miss right than get it wrong. So we've always sort of maintained that, and I always feel like if you've got that steady, very compact, very strong form, then it's hard to hurt things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always said that exercise or strength training in general is just 10 to 20 exercises rotated for 20 years. Yeah. And if you follow that kind of routine and that protocol without doing too much, but not doing too little, like you're going to get stronger and you're going to stay safe for most of the time.
Slow and steady is the name of the game. We're always adding in different variations of things. I think it's always good to evolve and always good to try new things. We're always adding in different accessories and moving things around and trying new things. Like we have everything written out on piece of paper and it says we're on version 26 because we change the version every time we change something up. So we're always trying to stay ahead and grow with the sport also, but because you're always learning new things, new technologies. I mean, no one knew what a belt squat machine was a few years ago.
Yeah, I think I saw you once with a slingshot. You benched a slingshot. Was a slingshot and bands or slingshot and chains? You had everything on.
That was a spoofy one.
Okay. I was like, not sure what's happening.
I were at a friend Ralph's house up in Ohio, and he had those earthquake bars.
Yeah.
And this he really worked out that way. I thought it was hilarious. But he's got like these bands hanging off with weights hanging off the bands, and everything's flying everywhere. And I'm like, this is just hilarious.
It's crazy to see that because from the naked eye, someone who doesn't know the ins and outs or know you personally, that was a spoof. Mm-hmm. Then you're bench pressing your husband on the bar, right? Uh-huh. That is a spoof. So people will be like, hey, that's a little bit out there. But then you'll hold 500 and 550 pounds for a static hold. So they might be like, that's another spoof. But that's actually been a staple of your training for decades, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's something, we started doing it in the late 90s. A friend of ours went to chiropractic school. And so they were learning all about isometrics when he was in school. And so we started applying isometrics to weight training. And that was one of them. We used to do heavy walkouts too, kind of the same thing for a squat. Since I've had some hip injuries, I haven't done that lately, but I did do that mostly. And then the bench in it, we have found, I mean, there actually, if you look into studies, there's a lot of studies that show that the isometrics have a lot of improvement on your concentric strength. And then it helps, I feel like it helps, especially for women with those little stabilizing muscles and the movement of the bar and just staying tight. So actually that's a serious one.
Yeah. I mean, you're bang on. There's a lot of research that actually shows that it does work. It increases tendon strength and tendon tolerance, mm-hmm. And then nervous system adaptations too. And as you know, confidence.
That's probably the biggest reason we used to do that. And when I was first starting, I would, when I first started competing in the back room before we would hit the competition, I'd do a heavy hold before I went out so that when I hit those heavy weights, they weren't so scary. Mm-hmm. Now I have enough confidence. I don't need to do that because it does take a little bit.
11 world championships later.
Yeah. But at the time it helped me mentally. He's like, Donovan would be like, let's just do one. Just hold it for a few seconds and I'll take it off. And then when you go out there, what you're doing doesn't feel so bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to be respectful of your time here. And I promised a few people that I would bring up these specific questions to you. Okay. You talking about the confidence that comes from heavy holds. One question someone asked me to ask you is, how do you stay sharp with your mental game? And I think they were concerned about or questioning your mental toughness when it comes to the sport, especially with things like COVID going on right now. How do you still stay mentally strong with competing?
And that's been hard too because there's for the lack of competitions also. So how do you stay in it? My earlier days, I really had a hard time with the mental game of things. I would perform way worse in the platform than I ever did in the gym. Spent a lot of time running back and forth to the bathroom. Just my nerves would get the best of me. My confidence was low. So I had to step back and try to work on my mental game. I did that through reading a few books. I always refer to, it's called Body, Mind, Something by Dan Millman. Yeah, and I would go back and read that every once in a while. There's certain ones in there that I really like, but really it's
McMillan, right?
Yeah, McMillan, yeah. Or is it Millman? I'll have to go back and look. But he was actually a professional gymnast coach, but he wrote this about how to kind of get your mind on track into competing, and he has you do these different exercises. And so I've always kind of take little things from there, but a lot of it's like visualizing and learning what to do with the negative thoughts. Mm-hmm. So usually like when I get those negative thoughts, I smash them. I just smash them and I throw them away. You just have to have some technique to get rid of them. It definitely helps to have a supportive training partner. Whenever I get a little bit negative, I got Donovan in there on my shoulder, reminding me of what I'm capable of and what I can do. So that certainly helps too. Sometimes it's hard, but you have to find techniques. For powerlifting, when you say, I get those spotters and loaders on my side, and that's actually a technique to deal with my nerves. Although I enjoy doing it, I like making them a part of what we're doing, getting out there and shouting, hearing people yell for me, and knowing that every one of those spotters is rooting for me helps me feel confident in what I'm going to do.
When I saw you at, was it Liberty College?
Mm-hmm.
When you benched 325 in front of the room of football players. When I watched that video, I was squeezing my fists as hard as I didn't even realize it, because the energy of the athletes around that were cheering and stuff, I was feeling through the internet.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps still. And so I always try to sort of recreate something like that, because there was no way I was going to miss that weight. Not with all that going on, not with all that support and everyone wanting and willing you to do it. So a lot of times when I get on the platform, I'll scream or I'll wave my hands up to the crowd. I try to get them going, but that's me getting them to help me. And when there's all that going around, it's hard to have those negative thoughts enter in your brain. Oh, I missed this in practice. Can I get this out? Looks heavy. I'm not feeling so good. I just, I lost too much weight. All that sort of stuff goes away and lets you focus on what you need to do.
There's a book, I don't know if you ever read it, called The Alter Ego Effect. So essentially the author talks about, athletes specifically, or you can use the same tactics in other parts of your life. You put on an alter ego when you want something to come from it. So Beyonce Knowles, hers is Sasha Fierce. So when she goes on stage to perform, she pretends she's someone else, and that lets her do her thing or handle the nerves, the anxiety that she gets. Because I guess apparently she's a very quiet, more of a shy person, but when she's on stage, she's not. So I think you have an alter ego too.
Yes, that's
on
true.
That platform.
My students will see me, like they watch videos of my events and things like that. They're like, I cannot believe that's you.
So if you had to have an alter ego name for like competition Jen, what would it be?
I don't know. I am not a creative person. We might have to send that out to social media and have them come up with something, because I don't really know. But I don't feel like I'm quick and witty like that with names.
Okay, we'll let the internet decide.
Yeah, let me know what they say. I'll watch.
I've got one final question I want to ask you today, Jen. At one point in your life and my life, we will take our last breath. Our day will be done.
Oh.
I don't want to get too deep here, but I want you to think of something like this. A book is going to be written on you. A book's going to be written on Jen Thompson. What would that final chapter look like? Or what would you want that final chapter to say about you? Jen did blah. Jen was good at this. This is how Jen had a legacy when it comes to whatever. What would you like the final chapter to say about you?
Well, there's so many things, but I would hope that it would say, I love the word legend. So I hope I'm a legend in this sport, and legend being that I was a groundbreaker. I helped make it what it was. I was integral part in making this sport what it is at that time. But I also hope it says I was a really great mom and that I created really great people. I helped bring really great people around me to be great, productive citizens of our society that gave back in some way. So I kind of hope two things. I hope that my name's always associated with powerlifting, and then I hope that those around me did something great that was helpful and were good people in our community.
Jen, that's one of the nicest things I've heard in a long time. That is so awesome. You already are a legend. Like you've got that.
It's hard for me to think that way, though.
Well, I say whenever actually broken down, like what you've done specifically, like you hold bench press records in multiple weight classes at the world championship level.
Yeah.
Drug tested. No one else has that.
Yeah.
No one else has that.
Yeah. My husband will say that.
Higher than the 84.
Yeah.
Two weight classes.
When you say things like that, it feels like you're talking about somebody else.
Two weight classes at the world championship. I've only seen maybe less than 10 lifters ever do that. And usually the record's broken like a month later at some other event. These have been up for a while now.
Yeah.
You've got the legend part down. And I'm watching your boys on social media and the way your family interacts. So all I can extrapolate from that is you are a super mom, probably the world's strongest mom. So I think that chapter is going to be written about you.
Thank you. I'm going to keep working on it, but thanks.
Well, I just want to end this by saying thank you so much for taking the time today. And anyone who's listening right now, hopefully they got a couple golden nuggets here about just how to be a better person. And I think you do that on a daily basis. So thank you so much for sitting down and taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, and I'm so glad you asked me. And I love following you and watching you curl your kids and stuff. It makes me laugh, and it's you put out a good vibe. I appreciate you having me and having this podcast for people to listen to.
Thank you. Hopefully we get to see each other sooner than later.
I sure hope so.
I'm going to link all the stuff on the show notes there for all the things you do, including your YouTube channel, your Twitch, all that jazz there. And then I would also like to link any of the charities that you're involved with in case anybody would like to make a financial donation, or if they're in the area and they want to donate some time to help out too.
That would be great.
Awesome. You have a phenomenal day, Jen.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you so much. Take care. Never stop learning, because life never stops teaching. If you've learned at least one thing from this podcast and your mission is to help other people, please share this podcast with them. And a reminder, we will be releasing one episode every Monday for the entire year. So make sure to hit subscribe so you get the updated information as soon as possible. Today is the first day of the rest of your life, and thank you so much for allowing me to be part of it.